To get started, and first of all, I want to welcome you all today. My name is Vicki Schmidt. I am the Insurance Commissioner for this state, for the state of Kansas, the great state of Kansas, and it's my honor to be your moderator today. I'm so glad that you've decided to join us for this session on preserving your future. First of all, we have a lot to get to, so we're going to go kind of fast through this first part. I'm glad that you're here to try to learn about how to build and protect your financial wealth. It's really important for women. It's important for everyone, but I think it's especially important for women. First of all, I do want to thank Treasurer Stephen Johnson and his team for putting this on. This is a great event, and I know that you're going to learn something in each one of the sessions that you attend today. Second, I want to introduce our esteemed panel that's here with us today. They have had experience in insurance, financial services, and also enforcement. Lauren Hermes is the Director of the Consumer Assistance Division at the Department of Insurance. So thank you for being here, Lauren. I have John Eichhorn, who's also from the Department of Insurance. He's Director of the Compliance, Enforcement, and Anti-Fraud Unit, and get to work with him too. Sally Brunkard is an investment advisor with Modern Woodmen of America. She currently serves as the Secretary-Treasurer of the Heartland Chapter of the National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors, also known as NAIFA, and she is also past president of that organization. So, you guys ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. The first question. I get to pick on Lauren because she works for me, and so we're going to start with her and make her answer the first question. Okay, Lauren, you do the Consumer Assistance Division, and you have talked to hundreds, if not thousands, of people in that role, and they call you with all kinds of questions, some kind of surprising. Insurance is complicated, it's confusing, and many times it's overwhelming. So, and that's even if you call us on a good day when your house hasn't been flooded or blown away by a tornado or you've been in a car accident. So what would you advise someone who's just beginning their insurance purchasing life and they haven't purchased insurance before and they're looking at doing that, and what are the tips that you'd give them on purchasing insurance?
Sure. So insurance is very overwhelming. There's numerous types of insurance, and while we may be savvy in one line, like home, we may not be in health or annuities. But I like to tell people to just go slow, right? There's so much information out there. There's so many people out there that are wanting to influence you. And there's just so much to approach, right? But I think Vicki sometimes says that we're the least known state agency out there, but we are best kept secret. Thank you. That sounded a lot better. But people call us and they're like, "Thank you for helping. I didn't even know that you were here." And I think just knowing who to reach out to, feeling comfortable who you're working with, is extremely important, because people that are in Florida or in another country or could possibly be AI is something that we just don't want people to encounter. And then just to take your time. I think it's important. These are investments. They're securing your auto, your home, your health. So to take time to read through some of these policies is important when you're investing in yourself.
Okay, good. Okay, Sally, we're going to move to you. Sally's been an investment advisor in Kansas for over 20 years. I know you've been a small business owner. You certainly raised your family here. And so when you have, and you've seen people in all different kinds of, all different times in their lifetime,
yes,
and different situations that develop. So what kind of advice do you give your people that come to you for advice on investment? And I know especially people consult you after the death of a loved one or after the loss of a job, and what kind of advice do you give people?
Well, my first thing I do when I meet with somebody, especially somebody new that I don't know, is I try to get to know them, because you can't advise anybody on anything without getting to know them. Know about their family and what their goals are in life and what they want to do. As far as insurance, the majority of people need to have some kind of life insurance especially. There are certain cases, people that have a lot of money that maybe don't need it, but you need to find out their circumstances too, because I know cases in history where businesses were saved because people had permanent insurance that they could borrow against, and if they wouldn't have that, they would have lost their businesses, and they were wealthy people. So, every circumstance is different. Disability, at one point, before we had the crash in 2008, was actually what caused most people to lose their homes. And so disability insurance is very important. It's important for people who are self-employed. Very few people want to buy it. They just don't see a need for it. If you have it at work, I highly recommend that you take it because it's generally paid for by your employer, or a good portion of it is. So, take the time and sit down and read about it and study it and have it, because you have a good chance that something could happen to you. You could get ill. You might be off 6 months. One of my son's friends, they lost a baby that was in the hospital for months, and their company continued to pay them. I'm not going to mention any specific companies, but it was one that a lot of people don't think is that great of a company, and it's huge. And I've seen the things they've done for their employees, and having this disability insurance has helped them so much. Long-term care, we had some conversation about that in the session earlier, how important that is if you fall in between a certain income level, and that's another one people don't want to buy. They don't think that it's so necessary to have it. But if I'm talking to a group that's over 50, they're definitely getting talked to about long-term care. And I try to explain to them it's just taking money from one pocket and putting it in another. It's not about that you're spending this money. This is money that you're putting aside for your care. And if you need this, it's going to pay you out a lot more than you ever pay into it. So those are the things that I try to go over with most clients that I talk to. If they're younger clients, and I look at the term insurance because that's what most of them can afford. They don't necessarily want to buy permanent insurance at that age. They think it's kind of silly to do it. So, I always figure that's something we can work into later. And I just try to build a relationship with them, find out what their needs are. I let them know a little bit about me, because I think people want to know about you. They want to know if you're married. They want to know if you have a family. They want, if you have grandkids, to share that information. I think that makes them more comfortable knowing you. And there are places that they can check, like SEC.gov, they can get on and they can find out information about you. And I encourage people, if you're working with somebody, please do your homework on that person. We were just talking about, how some of these reps switch from broker to broker to broker to broker, and it's constant. And you think, why are they doing that? There's got to be a reason. So if you do your homework and you see a rep that's been in 6 places in the last 5 years, you kind of go, why have they been at 6 different broker dealers in the last 5 years? So it's good to do your homework and be diligent about it, study about it. If you read about stuff, investments, and it's the same thing they said this morning. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably isn't. So
that's what my dad always said to me. If it sounds too good, it is. Okay, well, and thanks for bringing up the broker check. I know on our website at work, we have, you can put in an investment advisor's name and find out if they're registered. You don't want to deal with an unregistered person. So now we're going to turn to John, who is in charge of compliance, enforcement, and anti-fraud. He has a really little job. He has a wealth of knowledge about this. He's like Lauren, in that he talks to people every day who have gotten scammed and have maybe lost part of their investment. We always hope not, but sometimes they do. So what kind of resources do you have in the office? And I know we work with a lot of partner agencies also at the Department of Insurance that can help them protect their retirement and the nest egg that they have. And especially when they're getting ready to retire, we hear from a lot of people then too.
Right, exactly, Vicki. So the resources are out there. We just need to explore what the resources are, which ones do we want to trust and maybe not trust. I'll tell you, I was a state trooper, as it was mentioned, for 30 years before this job. And I have come to love the Kansas Department of Insurance, and we do a lot of things for the public in trying to educate both on securities and insurance, because we do both in our department under Vicki's leadership. And just our website alone, which is getting ready to change, we're going to update the look of our website and try to make it a little bit easier to navigate, or at least that's our hope. But if you go to insurance.kansas.gov, that is our website. There's a lot of information both on the insurance side and the security side. Like Vicki mentioned, and Sally mentioned too, we need to be checking the folks that we're employing to look over our finances as we're building our wealth through the years. That brokercheck.finra.org is a great place to put the name of either the firm or the person in. And like Sally said, I mean, she makes a good point. If you see somebody that's jumping jobs, we might want to question that. Not always does that mean a bad thing, because we do see a lot of our young people today not sticking with the same organization for a career, like, say, for example, I did with the patrol for 30 years. So it's not always a bad thing, but it's something that we need to look at. And they've got disclosures on there also for those individuals. If they've had complaints from their clients, it'll list that and what the resolution is, and we need to educate ourselves on that. We also have a department-sponsored site called smartinvestks.gov that is specific to securities information and investing. There's a lot of great tools on that website. You can get to it through our home website, the insurance department's website, or go to it directly, but that's another one where we see a lot of good resources. And then we've all mentioned our partners, and Vicki's right, we can't do it alone. I mean, the State Treasurer's Office is a great partner. We've got so many state and federal partnerships. The SEC is a big one. I talk to those folks when the government's open. I talk to those folks quite often. And they themselves have got a website, investor.gov. I go to that website frequently myself because there are a lot of neat things on there, publications that we share with them. And so none of us have all of it in one spot, but certainly we're partners in sharing information. And I think those are great resources for any of us to learn more about investing for retirement, which is what our goal is, right? To get to that point where we get to go do what we want to do and not have to go to work every day. So.
And can I just say something? I think to John's point, I think it's insurance and securities is, from my perspective, from our division, we're a very reactive agency. And what we really want is to be proactive, but it doesn't always work that way. So to have the knowledge and to know where the resources are is so important, whether it's Sally or a state agency, to know ahead of time rather than having to react after the fact. So.
That's right. John, I'm going to stick with you, but first of all, I just want to say, I think if you've been someplace 30 years and you change jobs, it's not really jumping at all. Jeez. He's replacing the SEC person, and I got to tell you, I'm so thankful to have John here today. We couldn't get the person because travel is suspended, and actually she can't even answer an email to us. So anyway, so John, we're going to stick with you for a minute. So I know that a big focus of the department that we've always had is educating people and keeping them informed and telling them what's out there, like we just talked about. You know, we want to empower you as an investor to have that knowledge so that you do feel comfortable in doing those things. But we have an entire unit devoted to fraud. And I know we could take an entire day and talk about fraud, and you wouldn't believe some of the stories that we have that have happened right here in Kansas. So, John, what are some of the common sense things the common scams that you see in the office, and particularly as it relates to women investors?
Yeah, you bet, Vicki. So, first of all, I just want to say, I mentioned I spent 30 years with the Highway Patrol, and through those 30 years, I knew Vicki actually as a state senator, and she was somebody that was handling our budget, judicial topics as we were coming through. And she was always very supportive of law enforcement. And when I came to this department, it was really because I respect what she stands for as far as law and order. And I got to tell you, our department every day is taking calls and complaints from people that are reporting to us about scams that are happening to them or to their loved ones. And in a little bit, we'll talk more about a new piece of legislation that was enacted last year that I think you guys will be interested in hearing about. But, you know, Sally said it, and she's exactly right. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And I can't tell that enough to enough people. There are so many things when I hear these stories come into our office, they'll explain what they thought they were getting into, what they thought they were going to get out of it. And when you hear the story, you just think to yourself, how did you think that that was even going to be possible? It sounds so far-fetched with what you know reality to be. When you're talking 25% interest on money that's being given, no, that is really a rare thing. 25% interest is very rare. And some of the things that they think they're going to get out of it just plain sound too good to be true, and they're finding out that it is. So some of the top scams that we're seeing right now that I think all of us need to be aware of is cryptocurrency is high on the list as far as a way to be scammed. I'm not going to sit here and say that cryptocurrency is a bad thing, but I'm going to tell you it's being used in bad ways. And I don't like that from that standpoint. But we have a lot of people right now that seem to want to get rich quick. We all seem to want to do that, right? And if you are late in life and trying to save for retirement, you may be trying to make up for lost time. And if you're hearing stories, talking to friends, worse yet, looking at social media where you're seeing quick gains by buying into some kind of a cryptocurrency investment, we're seeing a lot of people being defrauded in these investment opportunities as they see them. And then if it's just a plain scam, and I'll talk about this in just a minute, but we see just a routine scam like a romance scam, I'll talk more about that in a second, where people are feeding tens of thousands of dollars into cryptocurrency ATMs in smoke shops and liquor stores all over this country. And if you've never seen it or don't understand it, look on YouTube for the body cam footage from a police officer that responded to a convenience store where a woman, thank God, saw a elderly lady in the back of the store feeding tens of thousands of dollars of cash into a cryptocurrency ATM. She had on her phone the perpetrator who was telling her to feed this money into the machine because he was with Chase Bank, which was apparently her bank. And he was saying she was getting ready to lose all of her money and they needed to help her protect it. And the police officer, thank goodness, with the person that was reporting this, was able to stop her. And she later was interviewed, and I saw an interview. She was a very well-dressed, well-spoken woman, and she said, you would think that would be a stupid thing for somebody to do. I don't consider myself to be stupid, and you could clearly see she was not. But she got scammed, and she was already $47,000 into it when she was stopped. But investment schemes that are pitched through social media, we hear a lot of people telling us that they got into this opportunity and they found it on Facebook. Just because it's on Facebook doesn't mean that it's legitimate. Matter of fact, just recently I got the opportunity to hear a speaker from Meta who owns Facebook, and he was telling us that they are trying hard to take these things down as soon as they find out that they're fraudulent. But unfortunately, there are people that are being scammed through these social media opportunities, and people, they're believing it. It looks good, sounds good, too good to be true, certainly, and they're putting money into those things. You got Sally here who's been educated, she's regulated, she's done this for a lot of years. I trust somebody like that way more than I'm going to trust somebody on TikTok that has no education, that has no experience that I know of, and they're just telling me what I need to do next. And a lot of people, unfortunately, are falling for that. Impersonation schemes, Wow, there's another big one right now. And I'm going to tell you, I would have never guessed some of these. We have people that here in our state that are being approached by who they think are either Charles Schwab, Fidelity, brokerage firms, telling them that their accounts have been hacked and they're getting ready to lose all of their money. And the FBI is investigating this case. And the FBI would like to speak to them about this, so they transfer the call to the FBI. And the FBI agent tells them that while they're trying to get this person into custody, it's important for them to liquidate all of their accounts and to turn it into gold. And wait for this. There will be a FBI agent that will pull up in your driveway in a black SUV, and you're instructed to put the gold in the back seat of the SUV, and the FBI agent will drive away and put it into a safe holding space until they can get this case resolved. Now that sounds really far-fetched and hard to believe, but I'm going to tell you, I've talked to 3 people now in this state that have been through what I just explained. So this impersonation scheme is alive and well. It's actually it's said to be one of the most quickly growing schemes that we have out there. Romance, I mentioned for just a minute. Guys, oh my gosh. I know, if we're lonely, we'll do anything sometimes to fill that void, but I have got people that are on dating websites that are talking to people that they think are real people. They've seen pictures of these people, and I'm going to tell you that I've shared some of these pictures, and I'm thinking, really, again, back to if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Or looks too good to be.
Yeah. And what we a lot of times find are pig butchering scenarios where they start by feeding the pig, and they get the pig fatter and fatter and fatter, and before long they go in for the kill, and it's a long-term relationship. Some of these I've heard go past a year. I don't know how a scammer has the patience to scam somebody for that long, but apparently it's well worth it because people are handing over tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to romantic partnerships for whatever reason it is that they're doing, whether it be the next best investment. I mean, a lot of times I hear that. My new girlfriend, she says she's making hand over fist doing this, so I want to do that. And so they set up accounts, passwords. They're making false or fake websites that they're telling the victim to log into so that they can see the deposit of the money that they've handed over, and then they can watch their money grow. And what the victims tell me is that, they may have put $50,000 in, but it's well worth it. Last time I looked, it was $110,000. No, it never was 100. It's not even your 50. They've already blown your 50 on vacations and toys. So these romance scams are disheartening, really, because, you see people that just really are trying to find love in definitely all the wrong places. So. And then just simple phishing scams. I think it's important for all of us to remember, signing up for that $100 drawing or that $10,000 prize. When you put in all of your information to put yourself on the list for that raffle, and I guess we're going to have a raffle here in a little bit, but we won't be asking for any names or social security numbers, but when you're putting your information in those systems, though, that's being sold to others that sometimes are not using it for good purpose. So we need to be careful about what information we're putting out there. And then just a simple Google search sometimes of yourself will tell you a lot about what's out there on yourself. So be careful not to click on things that that are maybe not a website or an email address that you are familiar with. I was talking to Lauren on the way down here. One of the things that I've learned is that when you see PayPal emailing you about your account being overdue, and I'm going to tell you, I've had many people scammed by that. That's where it starts. But if you hover your cursor over where it says PayPal, where it's coming from, so the email's coming from PayPal, it looks like it, says it right there. If you hover the cursor over it, you'll see the real email address that is behind that. And I'm going to tell you that PayPal does not use email addresses like tomandjerry123@yahoo.com, right? So we know better about those kinds of things, and we need to educate and be ready for that.
That, I know that's quite a list, and believe me, we could give you 15 more examples of how things go. And I think that the other thing is that, you know, we do our best at the department to track down the fraudulent activity, and we have had some successes. We've really been fortunate in some of the successes we have had. And we work with the Attorney General's office to do the prosecution of those. But we, on average, we have less than a 7% chance of getting your money back if you enter into one of these scams. Okay, so Lauren, we talked quite a bit about securities fraud, and we also have insurance fraud. It's amazing what people do with an insurance policy sometimes. So do you want to talk a little bit about how to avoid insurance fraud?
Sure. So consumers aren't generally coming to us saying that they committed fraud, but what I see a lot is with billing, and I know that Vicki and I talked about this one time with Medicare. Sometimes there are providers that are fraudulently billing the insurance companies, and then we get EOBs, but we don't have to pay anything, so we don't tell anybody because we didn't have to pay anything. But truly, that is fraud because they are charging for a service that they are receiving payment from CMS for, and even though we aren't paying for it, it's still something that we should be bringing to somebody's attention, whether it's our department, we can forward it to CMS or CMS themselves. I think John said one time there was a case where somebody said they had 2 liver transplants, you know, and they had one real one, but then they found out they could get money, so they fraudulently whited out some documents and submitted it for another. I think we're really big into the auto insurance right now with people printing fake auto insurance cards, and if you get in an accident, you get their information. Well, they never really had a policy, and so now you're kind of stuck. You know, a lot of complaints we get about fraud are my neighbor is, you know, on Medicaid, and we didn't, you know, they make enough money, they don't need to be on Medicaid. And, you know, while we want to investigate all of those scenarios, I think sometimes we also can have neighbors that might have it out for us a little bit, if, you know. And so, you know, I think it's just really important to pay attention to all of your bills and all of your policies, all of the actual coverages that you have. That way you know that a doctor isn't submitting something that they shouldn't be, or that, you know, your mom or your parent has the right coverage. And a lot of times John and I talk about fraud, and one of the big things about fraud is the intent, right? And we may not intend for it to be fraud, but if I don't add my teenage child to my policy and my policy requires that, then I might not have coverage. While I don't believe that's fraud, I do think that I am going to be out coverage if there's an accident. So it's a fine line between, you know, accidents and fraud, but I think just being proactive and trying to pay attention to what we're doing, these are very large risks that we're taking when signing up for insurance and investments. It's just something that I think we owe our due diligence towards.
And I think on the subject of bump and buys, or, you know, you have an accident and then you sit in the, not you, but the person that hit you, hits you and then it sits in the car and online gets an insurance policy right away, and then they show that to the law enforcement when they show up. Well, we passed some legislation last year. We're going to launch, the insurance department is going to launch a model, a system, sometime between March and July 1st, but no later than July 1st. We're going to have real-time verification of everybody's insurance hooked to your vehicle identification number. And law enforcement's going to be able to use that. We're going to use it, Department of Revenue is gonna use it, so we hope to cut down on some of that, because that is a big issue. Okay, Sally, so you get to talk to people about investments all the time. I think the danger is not you, because you're doing legitimate investments and you're registered and I think the danger comes when somebody calls you and says, I want to take out $100,000 out of my retirement fund, and I want to, and sometimes it's just, I want to take out $100,000. And so then your job becomes, well, what are you taking it out for? Because she's a mandatory reporter to us and to many other places about if somebody's doing something that isn't in their best interest. So how do you educate your clients on some of the scams that they may come across that before they call you?
Well, generally with a lot of my clients, I will share examples, just like what we've been doing. As simple as, and I'd like to share this, I know it doesn't quite answer your question, but I've known 3 people that have been scammed since August out of over $100,000 between the 3 of them. And one of them was as simple as she got her email hacked a few months ago. She has a daughter that's involved in modeling. She's 14. She lives in Kansas. And she signed her daughter up at an event in Florida, and it was all done through email. You know, she just was expecting that she would be getting some kind of paperwork to sign, and she gets this email about 3 weeks ago that says, this is the, a DocuSign document that we need you to sign this release because of your daughter's age. Had all the information about this event on it. And she clicked on it, opened it up, and it was a blank 1040 form. And now being in this industry, she's in this industry, she knew right away that there was something wrong. You know, there shouldn't have been a 1040 form there. And she said, immediately I went in and changed my bank account passwords. She said, I did everything as quick as I could get it done, and they still got in her bank and got all the money out of her checking account. Now, she posts stuff on Facebook all the time about her daughter's travels and everywhere she goes and the videos, music videos she's in. And I think, there's a lot of us out there that do that. Post everything about what we do in our family and don't think anything about that there might be somebody else watching. And that's how they knew about what was going on with her. So, I try to share those stories with my clients. To be cautious, to think about it. I have a neighbor that's a police officer, so I can bounce things off of her. My other client was hacked because she got a phone call from Norton Antivirus. 2 phone calls, and it wasn't Norton Antivirus, and my police officer neighbor said that is a big scam right now, too. So be careful of Norton Antivirus. I share these stories about people, and I talk to them about things that, they get things that just make sense, and you just believe they're real, and you've got to be so careful. Don't ever take one from a credit card or like say PayPal. If you get something from PayPal, get out of that, go to your PayPal account and log in. If there's anything in there that they need from you, it will be on there. And the same way with your credit cards, if you get an email from a credit card company that says, your credit card's been hacked, you don't assume that's right. Or even from your bank. It can be from anywhere. So I share that information with my clients so that they're diligent about, go get your credit card out of your wallet, call the credit card company. They'll tell you whether there's an issue or not. Make sure you're calling the number that's on that. And my one client that was hacked, that had money stolen from a Fidelity account, an online trading account, they called a DCF. I would assume the bank did because she called the bank and told them. And somebody from DCF showed up. And she said, this guy showed up at my door. I didn't know who he was. He's just knocking on my door. And I said, well, did he give you a business card? And she said, yeah, I did. And I said, well, give me the card. And we got online. We didn't call the numbers on the cards because they can even fake those cards. So we called the department in Topeka and asked if this guy works for them. And they said, yes, we have a guy by this name. You should have gave her a flyer and you should have had a badge, which he did. So then we felt comfortable that this guy really was with DCF and not an imposter also, because you can get these people that work together like that. And they can come right to your home and you don't think anything about it. You just welcome them in and sit down and talk to them and don't realize that wow, I just talked to that person that's been scamming me out of my money. And the sad part, I told her to talk to her tax person about this. They sold her stock in that account. She had another account. They sold all her stock in that account. They didn't get the money. And I said, that you have to pay the taxes on the gain on that stock now. And I said, you need to talk to your accountant. And I said, I don't know whether you can write that loss off. I think you can. I said, I remember they used to have gambling losses you could write off on that. Not that I had any. They did that on the 1040, where you could write that off. So I would assume you could write that off, which would help her. But if she can't, she's got to pay the taxes on all the gain on that stock trade, those stock trades. And I thought, so they really scammed her twice. So, that's what I tell my clients. I said, I tell them stories. I said, I tell everybody those stories. I share them with everybody. A broker in Wichita, he's an older gentleman. He's sharp as a pin, I'm telling you, but he just got scammed. And he said, I was working with Microsoft Security, and it wasn't Microsoft Security.
Yep.
So, don't ever assume that when you Google a phone number, you Google something, and you're calling someone that you're actually calling who you say you're calling. Always use your credit cards. Always make sure PayPal is PayPal. Don't just assume that the other stuff is correct. Because there's too many websites out there, fake websites now, and there's a lot of that going on.
So we're talking to you about how you can get defrauded by things, but just real quick to make you just feel a little bit better, insurance companies have this problem too. We worked with an insurance company that ended up paying for 2 boats over a 2-year period of time that the guy said was stolen, and he never even owned the boat. So, it happens to others that should know better. Okay, so one of the things where I think the fraud, especially the securities fraud, really hits home for me is dependent adults and our elderly population. It's their life savings, and they need that money to live. So, John, can you talk to us a little bit about, the legislature passed a bill for us that is protecting vulnerable adults, and talk a little bit about some of our successes in that?
Yeah, you bet, Vicki. So Vicki's talking about 2024 legislature House Bill 2562. That's what we affectionately refer to it to still today. House Bill 2562 was passed by the legislature. Vicki brought it before the legislature. We had a lot of support from DCF. You mentioned DCF is one of our great partners in this venture. AARP and many others supported our efforts to get this legislation passed. And it was passed and put into law effective July 1st of last year. So we're about 1.5 years into seeing the results of what that legislation did and the new statutes that it created. And what the bill does is creates a system whereby vulnerable adults, so we're talking about those that are 18 years of age or older that can't take care of themselves and that they're vulnerable to others that might take advantage of them, and then elder adults, which I was telling Lauren, I'm going to turn 60 in May, and I guess I'm going to become one of these because we do define an elder here in Kansas at 60 years of age or older. So what this, it just seems like yesterday. But anyway, so the bill requires investment advisors and broker dealers here in Kansas to report when they think their client, who fits in these 2 categories, is being defrauded. And I got to tell you, Sally, I just met you today, and I'm so impressed with everything you're saying, and I'm going to tell you why. So people like Sally are required by this new law to tell us, the Kansas Department of Insurance and DCF, Adult Protective Services, when they think their client's being defrauded. So, if a client's 43 years old and they're, part of a romance scam, you're not required to do that. But that 65-year-old woman who's, talking to the doctor from California that's in Iraq, and let me tell you, I have one of those. She was giving lots of money to the doctor, and Sally's required to tell us about that. And in this time, and it's funny because the assistant commissioner or securities division, when he was testifying on this bill, he said, and he likes to rib me about it, he said, I told the legislature I thought we might have 40 of these a year. Well, Our first year, we had 140 of these reports, and we're just, I think, unfortunately getting started. But we are getting the reports from the broker-dealers and the investment advisors now about these situations, and we are opening a case on each one of them. We have a person, a civilian, that is on the front end of these reports. We're picking them apart, figuring out what just happened, sharing that information, making sure that Adult Protective Services in Kansas has it, because we do know and we're aware that they will send case agents out to the house to talk to those folks when it is appropriate. Now, we're not talking about the 61-year-old man that's just fine. He's completely in control of his faculties. He doesn't have dementia. He can do what he wants to do with his money. Now, one of the things we want to do is, if we can, educate them on what it is that we think's happening, right? So we see the red flags where sometimes people that haven't had those experiences, they're not seeing those red flags. So I love being a police officer. You know, we're law enforcement officers under Vicki. And I love being able to tell people that. I can build some trust and get them to understand that I've seen this before and you're throwing your money away. But it allows us some time to actually talk to them. The bill also, or the new law also allows the broker, dealer, investment advisor to hold or delay money that's coming out, like Vicki mentioned. If a $100,000 request would come to Sally and you said, well, what's that for? And to expand on that, as I understand it, Sally, you can expand if you want, but you know, Sally knows the plan of the client. If the plan for the client is to spend the next 20 years getting $2,000 a month so that we can live comfortably for the rest of our life, pulling out $100,000 all of a sudden is going to really derail that plan. And you know, the investment advisors and broker dealers should know their clients. And that's, I'm very impressed. I love what you said. So that's what we want, is that relationship between the registered person and the client, so that when this red flag pops up, that somebody like Sally goes, whoa, hold on a minute, I need to ask some questions. And if I need to, I can delay that money from going out while we have a minute to investigate this. We're going to talk to the Department of Insurance. We're going to talk to APS. Together, we're all going to see if we can get to this person before $50,000, say, for example, is blown or sent through a cryptocurrency machine, you know, whatever the scheme or scam is. But we have seen in this first year a little over $10 million actually lost. So this is just what's reported to us. We know there's much more than this in, you know, people that are younger, people maybe that are just taking money out of the bank, because we're only talking about brokerage accounts at this point. But the $10 million, unfortunately, was reported lost because the client took money out before anyone could even get to the knowledge point where we saw the red flags. You guys probably are aware that a lot of people now can do their own finances through the internet, right? So you have somebody like Sally, who's a face-to-face person that will meet with you and talk to you and give you service. But a lot of people, not a lot, I should say, there are some people that are wanting to do this through a computer. And if you're pulling money out, Sally may not even know about this until it's too late. It's already out of your Charles Schwab account, your Fidelity account, your Raymond James, whatever it may be. And that's where we believe this $10 million has been lost. But we saw $4.3 million that was actually stopped. So we would have had $14.3 million lost. We only had the 10 because the 4.3 was stopped. And I think a lot of it has to do with people like Sally, having conversations with people and finding out what's really going on and stopping the money from going out. And it certainly doesn't hurt to have the authority to be able to delay those funds too, because that gives us time to talk to those that need to be talked to. But we're finding great success with this legislation. Boy, it's drummed up a lot of work. You know, talking to Vicki, you know, Vicki says it right. It's opened our eyes to what's going on in our country and really in the world. When I hear seminars about this, all over this world, people are being scammed in similar ways. The computer has allowed for it in many ways. So we got to be very careful when we're online and conducting business.
I have a quick comment. in the one case, the lady that has the young daughter, she made a phone call to the bank that the money supposedly was wired to. And this is a good idea to do this, and I'll tell you why. Because when she called them and asked them, told them who she was, do you have a bank account in my name? They said no, they do not have an account in her name. So when she called her bank to let her bank know that, this money was fraudulently moved out of her account, they said, well, we're going to have to do some investigating because we don't know whether you might have done that. I mean, they basically accused her of doing it. And they said, it went to an account in your name at this other bank. And she said, well, it didn't because I called the bank and they told me there's no account in my name at that bank. So that was a good step. She was smart enough to realize, hey, I need to make this step before I let my bank know that this was fraudulent. And, she wouldn't have, the bank was going to basically put it on hold to do an investigation first before they assumed that she was that it didn't go to another account in her name.
Well, this time has gone very quickly for us. We had hoped to have some time for questions, but I don't want to make you late for your next piece of this day. I thank you guys so much, especially you, John, for filling in at the last minute. You were a great fill-in for a woman. Thank you. Good job.
And we didn't make you dress that way.
Yeah. And I appreciate all of your expertise and all the facts that you can always call us at the insurance department. We can put you in touch with Sally also. So let us know what you need. And thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful day.